All right, so after years of training professional NFL athletes, military special forces operators, and everybody in between, I can tell you one thing. These guys don't just train for size or strength. You've been told a lie about training, and that lie is that you have to choose between size or strength, that you have to either be a powerlifter or a bodybuilder. In this video, I'm gonna explain to you why that's not only not true, but it's probably the one thing that's actually holding you back from achieving either one. Building muscle and building maximal strength are one thing in a synergistic cycle. They're two sides of the same coin. If this is the first time you're seeing one of my videos, my name's Randy. I've been a strength coach for the last 15 years. I've trained professional athletes, military special forces operators, police officers, firefighters, business CEOs, busy dads, and everybody in between. I've seen firsthand in the real world what works and what doesn't. And my goal for this channel is to take all of the guesswork out of training and make it simple and easy to execute. I've trained hundreds of men in my time as a strength coach, and the point of this video today is to walk you through my system and show you my training philosophy. Now, if you're a busy guy who feels stuck in the gym, you feel like you're spinning your wheels and you want a clear path forward, the first link in the description will take you to my application form for one-on-one coaching. But today, we're gonna get you unstuck and actually making progress in the gym, regardless of if you work with me as one of my clients or not. All right, so let's break down this training philosophy. So when you're training for maximal strength, as in low reps, high weight, compound lifts, you're not just getting better at those lifts, you're building your body's ability to handle load in anything that you do, okay? So the more strength you have, the more weight you can use in your isolation hypertrophy movements, your bodybuilding movements for building size. The bigger those muscles get, the bigger the cross section, the more efficient, the better the leverage, the more weight you will then be able to use in the compound lifts the next time you do them. So if you've seen my origin story on my Instagram, you've seen that I have gone from benching about 125 to over 405 pounds as a paused, legitimate bench press rep, okay? So once I got my bench to 405, I was no longer using 15-pound dumbbells for skull crushers, I was using 45-pound dumbbells. Now, obviously, because I was exposing that muscle to 45-pound dumbbells instead of 15-pound dumbbells, I was able to build more muscle with those movements in those hypertrophy rep ranges that we traditionally think of as, 8+ reps. Now, that was facilitated by me being able to do 400 pounds for one rep. So because my body, especially my triceps, got stronger from bench pressing, I was able to increase the size of that tricep, which is like putting a bigger engine in a car, so then it has more horsepower to lift heavy weights in the bench press. So you can see how both of these training styles bleed into each other and work synergistically to make you bigger and stronger at the same time. Now, yes, you can just focus on getting stronger, but at some point that's going to be limited by the amount of muscle mass that you have. Okay, there is a reason that there are weight classes in strength and combat sports. And it's because that analogy of putting a bigger engine in a car doesn't slow the car down, it makes the car move faster, right? So mass moves mass. So the bigger that muscle gets, the more weight it's going to be able to push, which is why strength and hypertrophy are not opposing goals. Now, the same thing happened to me with my leg training, okay? So when I was back squatting, because I was competing in powerlifting, I don't really back squat anymore, but when I got my back squat up to 585 pounds. Now, because of my body type, because I'm so tall and lanky, and I have super long legs compared to my torso, my back squat primarily worked my lower back, glutes, and hamstrings, and my quads kind of fell by the wayside. They weren't really able to keep up with the other muscles that were taking over in the squat. So to improve my squat, I had to get my quads up to speed. Now, I couldn't just do more back squats to do that because I was disproportionately working that posterior chain. So I had to do isolation movements like hack squats and leg extensions to make those quads bigger, which made them stronger, which made my back squat go up because my back squat was being limited by one of my muscle groups just not keeping up with the other ones. So if one of your main lifts is stuck, like your squat, your bench, your deadlift, your shoulder press, a lot of people think you just need to try harder at that movement or do some other random exercise to switch things up. But what it really comes down to is you have to pick an isolation exercise that addresses your specific weak point. Okay, for instance, I had a client who came to me and his bench press had been stuck at the same number for years. I think his max bench was like 225. Well, when I watched one of his training videos, I noticed that as he started to get tired with these low rep, high weight movements, he started to slow down about 3/4 of the way through the bench press. So this last part of the bench press is where your triceps are doing a lot of the work to lock your elbows out to complete the rep. So his triceps were the lagging movement or the lagging muscle group in that movement of the bench press. So to correct this, I had to get his triceps bigger and stronger. But it wasn't just by doing a full range of motion tricep movement, I specifically had to attack that range of motion that his tricep was lagging in. So the movement that I had him do was called a floor laying barbell tricep extension. This is kind of like a skull crusher with a dead stop at the bottom. And so it's just kind of focusing on that lockout portion of the tricep. So it got his tricep bigger and stronger in that specific part of that range, so that when we went back to the bench press, he was no longer held back by his tricep strength, and his bench blew up, and he added 25 pounds, I think, to his bench in like 3 months. All right, so we know that we have to train for strength and for size. Now the key is, how do we put this together in one simple workout? Now the way that I do it is this, and I'll try not to block the whiteboard too much, but our first part of the workout is called the build phase. Sorry for my bad handwriting. Everything's on the computer these days. So in the build phase, we're working on a powerlifting style progression, okay? This is where we're gonna focus on our main compound movement, and we're going heavy. So this might be squat, bench press, deadlift, or some variation of that you need to work on based on your leverages, okay? So not everyone's gonna be doing a full range of motion bench, full range of motion squat. Typically, I'll have somebody doing something that addresses their specific body type. Sometimes that is the full range of motion movement. Now, when we're doing the build phase, we're using a proven powerlifting progression style, okay? So it's not just random, it's not just like go heavy or go until you can't go anymore. We're using something like 5-3-1 or linear progression or reverse pyramid training or whatever it is, but there's a specific style of powerlifting progression that we're applying to the strength work, okay? This is important because a lot of people think that if you just go to the gym and you just try hard, you make progress, but you have to remember that your body is just a machine that adapts to stresses, okay? So we have to know exactly what stress your body needs to make that adaptation that day. A good analogy for this is calluses on your hands, okay? So when you are growing calluses on your hands from doing manual labor, that is your body responding to the stress on your hands by sending more tissue to the hand to reinforce it. Now, it's not going to do that if it doesn't need more tissue there. So as long as we're providing a novel stimulus, as in something that body is not adapted to yet, it will continue to make those adaptations, which in this case is getting bigger or getting stronger. So when one of my athletes goes into the gym and they do the build phase of the workout, they know exactly what exercise, how many reps, how many sets, and what weight they're using, and it's all based on what they had done previously and what we're trying to do, okay? So nothing is random. I'm never gonna tell somebody to just go in and go hard or go heavy. It's always going to be a specific number that they need to hit that day. So this isn't the difference between making a little bit of progress or making a lot of progress. It's more binary. It's more black and white. If you do something in the gym, your body will either adapt to that thing or it will not create an adaptation because it can already do it, right? So building muscle, building strength, it's very expensive for your body to do, and your body doesn't want to do that unless it has to. So if I go into the gym and I bench 225, and then next Monday I go to the gym and I bench 225 again for the same number of reps, my body can already do that. So it's not going to put more muscle or more strength there because I'm not asking it to do something that it can't do yet. So again, I have to ask the body to do something new for it to create something new. So that's the build phase. The second phase of the workout is called defend. Now the defend phase of the workout, bad handwriting, the defend phase of the workout is designed to build functional strength, okay? What I mean by functional is, one, we're working in movement patterns that we see out in nature, okay? So like if you are a firefighter or a police officer or just somebody who needs to be able to lift things up out in front of you, maybe we'll do Zerchers, maybe we'll do farmer carries. We'll also do anti-rotation movements, okay, to make your core more solid so that you can avoid movement. So when we build this kind of stability in the defend portion of the workout, we're also stopping power leaks. What that means is if my body is more tight and more stable, then when I put a barbell on my back and I have less awkward, like random movements happening and everything is more just locked in, I'm going to be stronger in that movement because I'm not going to be dumping power through inefficiencies in my core strength. The defend phase also focuses on grip work, which I think is incredibly important because your grip is how you lift things, right? Like your deadlift, the limiting factor is oftentimes your ability to just hold the bar because your hands are weaker than your glutes and your hamstrings. So if we can build your grip up, we're going to make you stronger in the deadlift. Okay, now finally, the attack phase of the workout is where we're working on those hypertrophy movements. Okay, so 2 goals for the attack phase, okay? 1 is to build the physique that we want, okay? We want big round delts, we want big mountainous traps, we want wide lats, we want to create that upside down Dorito shape, that V taper, so that we can build that imposing physique that we want. 2, in the attack phase, we're also working on those isolation movements that are specifically going to help us in our strength exercises in the build phase. So just to recap, okay, the build phase is building maximal strength, okay? These are your main compound movements. We don't care so much about feeling it where we want to feel it. We care more about the efficiency of the movement. So when you're doing a squat, a bench press, a deadlift, I don't have a target muscle group. I just want to move that weight as efficiently as possible and just get stronger. When we move to the defend phase, now we're working on fixing those little gaps, right? Those power leaks. So we're going to be doing a lot of core work. We're going to do a lot of like unilateral carries, maybe carrying a dumbbell by your side, overhead. We're going to be doing grip work. We're going to be doing things like Pallof presses where the weight's pulling us to the side and we're trying to resist it. So that's the defend phase. The attack phase, that's where we're building our muscles, right? That's our hypertrophy stuff. Now, in the attack phase, we're thinking like a bodybuilder. All right, so all I care about in the attack phase is that you feel it working where you want to feel it. So if you're doing lateral raises and you're doing the 20s and your arm is straight like this, and then next time you do 30s and you're doing this, that's not a good measurement of you getting stronger with the hypertrophy stuff. So I don't care so much about the weight. I just care about the mechanical tension, because a 20-pound dumbbell like this is probably the same as a 30-pound dumbbell like this. So the weight doesn't matter so much in the attack phase. What matters is, do you feel it where you want to feel it? All right, so if I'm doing bicep curls and I'm throwing the weight up and I'm not really feeling it in my bicep, that's not really accomplishing the goal of isolating that muscle, okay? So in the attack phase, we're focused on isolating the muscle and we're focused on thinking like a bodybuilder, making the movement probably less efficient and just trying to work that specific muscle. Now, sometimes guys will say they don't really care about building a bunch of muscle, okay? So first of all, that's silly, because no man on earth has ever said, I wish I had less muscle. But second of all, you have to realize that at some point, you are going to have to get bigger muscles to get stronger, because mass moves mass. So there will be a point where your strength gain is limited by your cross-sectional size, like your leverages of the muscle, right? So you have to get bigger in order to get stronger to a point. Now, sometimes people will be worried about building muscle and having that slow them down, okay? So this is a stereotype, because most people who work on building muscle and building strength neglect their conditioning work. And that will make them slower because they're not keeping up with their endurance and their cardiovascular health. However, again, putting a bigger engine in a car does not slow a car down. It just makes that car faster, even though that engine weighs more. Think about this. If one of your goals is to be able to jump higher and you make your legs bigger and stronger, that muscle can now produce more force and launch your body higher. If I want to be able to do more push-ups and I get my bench from 200 pounds to 400 pounds, I guarantee that you can do more push-ups, right? Because if you think of push-ups as a percentage of your maximal strength, if I get that maximal strength higher, every push-up rep is now less of my max rep push-up. Now, there are concepts like muscular endurance, but there's more so like your cardiovascular ability to replenish that muscle. So long as we're still staying on top of our cardiovascular health and doing our conditioning, getting stronger is not going to slow you down. The only two instances in which getting bigger is going to make you slower is, one, if you get fat and not more muscular, which we should be mitigating through the diet and through the progressive training, or two, if you're on like an extreme end of an endurance sport, okay? So look, I'm 260 pounds and I can still run a 7-minute mile. To run a 6-minute mile, I would have to probably lose a ton of muscle mass, and that's just not worth it for me. But I can still be in the top, 10 or 15% of runners, maybe not professional runners, but like recreational ones, while still being pretty big and muscular. But to be in that, top 5%, I would have to dedicate everything to running, and that's just not worth it for me. So yes, at some point, because you have to perfuse that muscle with blood, being an endurance runner and having a bunch of muscle mass probably isn't going to be very conducive to being a champion in endurance running. However, if you just need to be able to have good enough endurance, then your muscularity generally isn't going to slow you down, especially if you're not on the extremes of muscle mass, which most people aren't going to be able to achieve no matter how much gear they use or how much they eat or how hard they train. Usually when people say that they don't want to be more muscular, they don't want to get too big, it's really just an excuse because they can't get any bigger. But again, I never had a client tell me like, hey, I just have too much muscle mass, I want to be less muscular. You also have to remember that being big and muscular is way more functional than having insane endurance and being able to run marathons, okay? Because unless you are a competitive runner, you're not doing marathon style efforts every day. What you are doing every day is interacting with other people on the street. And in those instances, the way that you look is much more important. A lot of people don't want to admit this, but the world judges a book by its cover, okay? So the way that you come off to someone, the way that you appear the first time they see you is going to play a huge role in how those people interact with you. And I know this firsthand because when I first started training, I was a string bean. And I know the difference now when I walk into a room and I have that command presence and people naturally look to me as a leader, my life is completely different, okay? The opportunities that have been afforded to me because in part of my physique and the confidence that I have because of that have been insane. When you are someone who looks like they take themselves seriously, like somebody who is big and muscular and you look disciplined, you look like somebody who trains hard, you look like somebody who can rip someone's head off, the reality is that people are just going to trust you more. They're going to listen to you more. They're going to defer to you more. You're going to naturally appear as a leader. And this is unconscious, okay? This is like sub-communication that happens when somebody looks at you. And this actually does make a massive difference in the trajectory of your life. I call this the law of the jungle, okay? And this is a topic for another video, but no matter how much money someone has or how socially powerful they are, there is some kind of implied respect that happens when you look like somebody who is frankly big and jacked. Even if you're like, I don't know, applying for medical school or something and you're sitting in front of a board, you might not think that the way that you look is going to have an impact on, that interview, but it really is. And it might be hard to comprehend this without being on both ends of that extreme, but I can tell you firsthand that things like job interviews and relationships and friendships and just me interacting with people in the street on a daily basis goes so much differently now because of the way that I appear. Now, this isn't like you domineering people or you being intimidating to people. This is literally just this like unconscious thing that happens when somebody sees somebody who is more physically imposing. Now, the other thing I hear a lot of the time is, well, I don't have time to do, these big long workouts like this, okay? This might look like the workout would take longer, but it really doesn't, okay? Because when your training is precise and dialed, like when my client goes into the gym and they know exactly what they have to execute that day, it actually takes way less time. In fact, most of the people that come to me for training have been working out for 4 or 5 days a week for 1 or 2 hours at a time. And usually once we dial things in and we figure out what actually works for their body, they only need 3, maybe 4 days a week for an hour or less in the gym. Very rarely am I in the gym for more than 60 minutes because when I go in there, I know exactly what I'm doing that day. I'm not just walking around trying to find a machine that's not taken and going through the motions. I'm going and I'm attacking each part of these workouts in a way that I know that if I do this, if I do that rep, if I do that set, if I do that weight, I'm going to make that adaptation that I want so I don't have to just throw a bunch of crap at the wall and hope that something sticks. So if you understand the benefit of training, if you understand the benefit of going to the gym, and you're already spending 3, 4, 5 hours a week in the gym, you should be doing it as efficiently as possible. Why would you not want to make the most out of that time if you're gonna spend that time anyways? A lot of times I'll hear people say something like, well, I'm just trying to maintain in the gym. Why would you be trying to maintain? If you're gonna go to the gym and you're gonna take that time, you should be using that time to get as good as possible, which means building strength and building size. But again, when you train this way and when it's actually precise, when it's actually the things that you need to be doing, you can get in and out of the gym in under an hour, I promise. So anyways, to wrap this up, getting strong and getting big are not opposing goals. They are synergistic and they are two sides of the same coin with regards to success in your training. So if this philosophy clicked with you and you're tired of spinning your wheels in the gym and you want to actually make progress and get results and spend less time doing a bunch of crap that doesn't work, click that link in the description and go apply for one-on-one training. That link will take you to a short application, and if it looks like we're a good fit for working together, it'll take you to my calendar and you can book a call with me. So again, thank you for watching. If you found this content valuable, click the like button and subscribe to my channel for more no-nonsense training advice.